In the heart of Nigeria's northern frontier, a land both beautiful and scarred by recent conflicts, the sun rose with a relentless intensity, casting long shadows over the bustling market streets of the unnamed state. Dust swirled in the air, a tangible reminder of the turmoil that had gripped the region. Yet, life persisted stubbornly amidst the chaos, with local merchants setting up their stalls in defiant reclaim of normalcy. Among the patrolling soldiers, weaving through the crowd with a mixture of caution and determination, was 26-year-old Francis Peter. Francis, fresh-faced, yet marked by a resolve that belied his years, had been deployed here as part of a military effort to restore peace. The contrast between the serene landscapes he had passed through, en route to this place, and the evident scars of conflict left him silently contemplative. This was his first real assignment, a test of both his training and his ideals. His attention was caught by a particular stall, manned by a woman and a young daughter. The daughter, assisting her mother in selling foodstuffs, had a presence that seemed to cut through the ambient noise of the market. Her name was Abibat, a dark-skinned Kanuri lady whose grace under such pressing circumstances spoke volumes. Her mother, a sturdy woman with hands worn by years of labor, watched on with pride. Their stall, modest and adorned with an array of local cuisines, attracted a steady flow of customers, a testament to their resilience and the community's support. Compelled by a mixture of duty and curiosity, Francis approached them. His uniform did little to mask the gentleness in his eyes as he exchanged pleasantries and purchased some food. The conversation was cautious, yet there was an underlying current of genuine connection and acknowledgement of the shared human experience amidst the backdrop of conflict. "I hope this helps, even if just a little," Francis said, handing over the money, his voice carrying a warmth that momentarily bridged the gap between soldier and civilian. Abibat, taken aback by the soldier's kindness, responded with a shy smile. "We are grateful, sir. It's not often we see kindness in these times." The exchange was brief, yet it marked the beginning of something profound. Recognizing a kindred spirit in Abibat, Francis found himself compelled to stay a moment longer, sharing a joke that brought a genuine laugh from Abibat, a sound that seemed to defy the surrounding tension. As they parted ways, a spontaneous decision led Francis to offer his number. "In case you need anything, or just want to talk about anything," he explained, trying to mask the depth of his interest under the guise of a friendly offer. Abibat hesitated for a moment, the weight of the gesture not lost on her. Accepting the number, she felt a mix of apprehension and unexpected hope. "Thank you, Francis. We appreciate it." As Francis rejoined his patrol, the encounter lingered in his mind, a beacon of light in the midst of his duties. Abibat, returning to her tasks, found her thoughts wandering back to the soldier with the kind eyes, allowing herself a sliver of hope in a landscape marred by violence. The market, with its blend of voices, colors, and smells, continued around them. But in that moment, a tentative connection had been forged, one that promised the possibility of understanding, support, and perhaps, over time, something deeper. Both Francis and Abibat looked forward to their next meeting, each for their own reasons, unaware of how deeply their lives would soon intertwine. As the days turned into weeks, Francis found himself eagerly anticipating each visit to the market under the guise of resupplying provisions for his unit. However, the true motive behind his frequent visits was the opportunity to see Abibat. Their initial conversations, once tentative and cautious, grew into deep, meaningful exchanges. The market, bustling and lively around them, provided a surreal backdrop to the intimate world they carved out for themselves within the chaos. For Abibat, Francis became a symbol of safety and a beacon of hope. His presence, marked by genuine kindness and the willingness to listen, offered her a reprieve from the uncertainty that clouded her days. She found herself opening up to him about her dreams of pursuing education beyond what was available in the estate, a dream that seemed increasingly distant with each passing day of unrest. Francis, in turn, shared his own aspirations and fears. He spoke of his decision to join the military, driven by a desire to contribute to the peace and stability of his country. Yet, he also confessed the weight of the responsibility he felt on his shoulders, the fear of not living up to the expectations set before him, and the hope that his efforts will someday lead to a lasting peace. The conversations often stretched late into the evening, with neither wanting to part ways. They spoke of everything from their favorite childhood memories to their hopes for the future, finding solace in the shared understanding and acceptance between them. The stark contrast between their dreams and the reality of the environment only served to strengthen their connection. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Francis and Abibat found themselves sitting side by side on a secluded bench away from the prying eyes of the market crowd. It was then that Francis took Abibat's hand in his, an action that spoke louder than words. The gesture was simple, yet profound, symbolizing a promise of support and companionship. "I don't know what the future holds," Francis confessed, his voice barely above a whisper, "but I do know that I want you to be a part of mine, whatever it may look like." Abibat, moved by his words, squeezed his hand in response. "And I want you to be a part of mine," she replied, a voice laced with a mixture of hope and fear. "But the path ahead is uncertain. My family, the expectations, the traditions, they weigh heavily on me." They sat in silence for a moment, each lost in thought, contemplating the complexities of their situation. The challenges they faced were daunting, but the strength of their connection gave them hope. They understood that the road ahead would be difficult, but the prospect of facing it together made it seem less insurmountable. In the days that followed, their love continued to grow, nurtured by shared dreams and the comfort they found in each other's presence. The knowledge that Francis' deployment could end at any moment, sending him back to Lagos, loomed over them like a dark cloud. Similarly, Abibat's fears about her family's expectations and the cultural pressures that dictated a path in life cast a shadow over their happiness. Despite these fears, or perhaps because of them, Francis and Abibat chose to cherish each moment they had together, fully aware that each meeting could be their last. They vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination, holding on to the hope that their love would be strong enough to overcome the barriers that stood in their way. Under the cloak of dusk, the lovers met, away from the prying eyes that daylight brought. Their meetings, once spontaneous and carefree, had become carefully planned escapes from the watchful gaze of the world around them. The secrecy of their affair added a layer of intensity to their relationship. Each moment together, both precious and stolen. Francis, who had seen the toll of the conflict on the land and its people, found solace in Abibat's presence. She became his oasis in a desert of unrest, a reminder of why he fought and what he hoped to preserve. Despite the uncertainty of his future and the dangers that his profession entailed, he dared to dream of a life beyond the conflict, a life with Abibat by his side. One night, under a canopy of stars that seemed to bless their union, Francis whispered a promise to Abibat, a vow that echoed the depth of his commitment to her. "I don't know how or when, but I promise you, Abibat, we will find a way to be together openly, without fear," he said, his voice steady with conviction. "We'll build a peaceful life, far from this chaos, a place where we can love freely, without hiding." Abibat, moved by his words, felt a swell of hope mixed with fear. The thought of a life with Francis, free from the shadows and whispers, was a dream she scarcely allowed herself to entertain. Yet, in his eyes, she saw not just the promise of love, but the determination to make it a reality. "I want that more than anything, Francis," she responded, a voice laced with emotion. "But the path there is fraught with obstacles. My family, our traditions, I fear they would not understand." The couple understood the gravity of their situation. Abibat, bound by the expectations of her culture and the obligations to her family, faced a daunting challenge. The tradition of arranged marriages was deeply ingrained in our community, and a refusal to adhere to it would bring not just personal consequences, but shame upon her family. Francis, aware of these challenges, felt a surge of protectiveness and resolve. He knew the journey ahead would be difficult, but he was prepared to face it head on for the chance at a future with Abibat. As they continued to meet in secret, their love became a silent rebellion against the constraints that sought to define them. They shared dreams of a home filled with laughter, a place where the scars of war and the burdens of tradition could not reach. In their envisioned future, they were simply Francis and Abibat, unbound by the soldier's uniform or societal expectations, free to love and live as they chose. Yet, with each whispered promise and stolen kiss, the weight of their secrets grew heavier. The fear of discovery loomed large, casting a shadow over their moment of happiness. They knew that if their affair were to come to light, the consequences could be severe, not just for them, but for their families as well. Despite the risks, Francis and Abibat clung to their love as a beacon of hope. In a world torn apart by conflict and bound by tradition, their relationship was a testament to the enduring power of love. With each secret meeting, they fortified their resolve to overcome the obstacles that lay ahead, holding on to the promise of a future where their love could flourish in the light. As they parted ways that night, under the watchful gaze of the stars, Francis and Abibat knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges. But they also knew that together, they had the strength to face whatever came their way. Their love, born in the shadows, was a silent vow to each other and the world that they would fight for the chance to love openly, to build a life of peace, away from the turmoil that had brought them together. As the days of Francis' departure dawned, the reality of their impending separation loomed large over both of them. They had agreed to meet one last time, a final goodbye in the place where their love had blossomed amidst the chaos. The market, once a backdrop to their growing affection, now served as a setting for their farewell. Francis arrived early, anxiety and anticipation churning in his guts. He found Abibat waiting for him, a presence in stark contrast to the turmoil within him. She stood there, as beautiful and resilient as the first day he had seen her, her dark eyes filled with a mix of emotions. Abibat, Francis began, his voice thick with emotion. I can't believe this day has come. I wish I could stay. I wish that things could be different. Abibat reached for his hand, her grip firm yet tender. I know, Francis. I feel the same, but this isn't the end for us. We've overcome so much. This is just another challenge we'll face and conquer, she added, a determined light in her eyes. The market around them buzzed with life. Oblivious to the heartfelt scene unfolding, Francis and Abibat stood in their own bubble of reality, cherishing the final moments before they would have to part ways. I'll come back for you, Francis vowed, his words a lifeline in the sea of uncertainty that awaited them. I don't know how long it will take, but I promise I will find a way for us to be together, without secrets, without fear. Abibat nodded, tears brimming in her eyes, but her voice steady. I'll wait for you, Francis, no matter how long it takes. Our love has survived this far. I believe it can withstand even this. Just don't forget me, she said half jokingly, trying to lighten the mood. Forget you? Impossible, Francis replied with a sad smile, cupping her face gently. You are a part of me now, Abibat. Every day apart will only make my love for you stronger. They shared a final embrace, a silent promise of undying love and fidelity. The market's cacophony faded into the background, leaving only the sound of their synchronized heartbeats. As they parted, a solemn pledge was made to stay in touch, to share their lives through messages and calls until they could be reunited. Watching Francis leave was the hardest thing Abibat had ever done. She stood there long after he had disappeared from sight, gathering the strength to face the days ahead without him. The market, once a place of connection and joy, now felt empty, a reminder of what she had lost. Francis, on his journey back to Lagos, was consumed by thoughts of Abibat. The boss's steady rumble was a dull echo to the turmoil of his emotions. Leaving her was the hardest decision he had ever made. But he clung to the hope that it was not a goodbye, but a see you later. He spent the journey planning, dreaming of the day he could return to her, not as a soldier on deployment, but as a man free to love and be loved. The farewell was a testament to the power of love to endure, even in the face of seemingly unsurmountable obstacles. As Francis settled back into his life in Lagos, and Abibat continued hers in the northern states, they held on to the memories of their time together, the promises they had made, and the unwavering belief that someday they would be reunited. The news of the proposal came to Abibat one evening as she helped her mother close the store. Her mother, Sharifat, had waited for the right moment to broach the subject, her tone carrying a mix of excitement and apprehension.
Abibat, you know how much your father and I wish for your happiness, Sharifat began, her eyes searching her daughter's face for a reaction. Mallam has expressed his desire to marry you. He is a good man, wealthy and respected in the community. This is a great honor for our family. Abibat felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Mallam, a man more than twice her age, known for his wealth and influence, had never been a figure she could envision a future with. The very thought of marrying him filled her with dread. Mother, I do not wish to marry Mallam, Abibat replied, her voice barely above a whisper, the weight of the words hanging heavily between them. Sharifat's expression turned stern, a hint of frustration creeping into her tone. Abibat, this is not merely about what you wish. This is about securing your future and honoring our family. Mallam has been generous to us, even paying your dowry since you were 18. The revelation struck Abibat like a physical blow. The knowledge that her dowry had been paid without her knowledge, binding her to a man she did not love, feels like a betrayal. The practice, though not uncommon in their culture, was one she had hoped to avoid, dreaming instead of a marriage built on love and mutual respect. But I do not love him, Mother. How can I marry a man I feel nothing for? Abibat pleaded, the desperation in her voice palpable.
It is not about love, Abibat. It is about duty, about what is best for the family. Sharifat responded, her tone softening slightly. Give it time. Love can grow. The conversation left Abibat feeling trapped, a prisoner of tradition and familial expectations. In the days that followed, the pressure mounted. Her father, Mallam Idris, a man of few words, expressed his support for the marriage, citing the benefit it would bring to the family and the respect it would garner from the community. Abibat felt isolated, her once close relationship with her parents strained by the looming prospect of an unwanted marriage. She sought solace in the memories of her time with Francis, clinging to the hope of his return. Yet, the reality of her situation was inescapable. The expectation to marry Mallam, to comply with the wishes of her family and the dictates of their culture, threatened to suffocate her. As the days passed, the weight of her secret love for Francis and the fear of a future with Mallam consumed her. She found herself withdrawing, her once vibrant spirit dimmed by the turmoil that raged within her. The proposal from Mallam, far from being a cause for celebration, had become a source of profound distress for Abibat. The revelation that her dowry had been paid since she was 18 only added to a sense of entrapment, a reminder of the limited autonomy she had over her own life and future. In a moment of despair, Abibat pondered the possibility of defiance, of rejecting the path laid out for her. Yet, the potential consequences for her family held her back. a testament to the deep sense of duty and loyalty that had been instilled in her from a young age. Abibat's revelation to her parents came on a stifling evening. The air, heavy with unspoken words and the last rays of sunlight, casting long shadows across the family home. The dinner table, once a place of laughter and shared stories, had become a battleground. The tension palpable as Abibat mustered the courage to speak her truth. "Mama, Baba, I need to tell you something important." Abibat began, her voice a tremulous whisper, betraying the turmoil that churned within her. The silence that followed was suffocating. Her parents' eyes fixed on her, a mixture of concern and curiosity in their gaze. "I am pregnant," she finally confessed, the words falling like stones into the stillness of the room. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Sharifat's gasp was a sharp intake of breath, her hand flying to her mouth in shock, when Mallam Idris's face hardened the lines, deepening with disapproval and disappointment. "How could you bring such shame upon our family, Abibat?" Sharifat cried, her earlier restraint giving way to a flood of emotions. "With a soldier, no less, and what of Mallam Yaya's proposal?" Mallam Idris remained silent, his eyes boring into Abibat, a storm of emotions brewing beneath his stoic exterior. The disappointment was clear, a palpable force that filled the room, weighing heavily on Abibat's shoulders. "I love him, Mama, Baba. I cannot marry Mallam Yaya. I cannot live a lie," Abibat pleaded, her defiance rising from the depths of her love for Francis, a beacon in the darkness that threatened to engulf her. The argument that ensued was heated, a clash of wills between the old ways and the new, between duty and desire. Abibat's parents, bound by tradition and the expectations of their community, could not accept her choice, viewing it as a betrayal of their values and a stain upon their honor. Feeling trapped and misunderstood, Abibat made a decision that would alter the course of her life. In the dead of the night, with only the moon as a witness, she packed a small bag, her heart heavy with the knowledge of the bridges she was burning behind her. The decision to flee to Lagos, to seek refuge with Francis, was born out of desperation, a wild grasp at a future that promised love and freedom, however uncertain. Her departure was a silent one, a ghost slipping through the shadows, leaving behind the life she had known. The journey to Lagos was a blur, a tumult of emotions and fear, each mile taking her further from her past and closer to the unknown. Arriving in Lagos, Abibat was overwhelmed by the sprawling city, its chaotic beauty, a stark contrast to the life she had left behind. With nothing but a phone number and the hope that Francis would stand by her, she made the call that would bridge the distance between them. Abibat's voice trembled as she dialed Francis' number, the phone feeling like a lifeline in her grasp. The ring echoed in her ears, each tone amplifying anxiety until, at last, Francis answered. "Francis, it's me, Abibat. I've come to Lagos," she blurted out, her words rushing to fill the silence. The surprise in Francis' voice was palpable. "Abibat, what happened? Are you alright?" The floodgates opened, and Abibat poured out a story, her words a mixture of fear, hope, and determination. She spoke of the unwanted proposal, the revelation of her pregnancy, and the final desperate decision to flee to Lagos in search of a future with him. The revelation came unexpectedly. A bombshell dropped in the midst of an already tumultuous time. Lieutenant Bello, known amongst the soldiers for his strict demeanor and unwavering discipline, was not just a commanding officer in the military hierarchy, but also a pivotal figure in the personal saga unfolding between Francis, Abibat, and Mallam Yaya. It was a chance overhearing of a telephone conversation that brought dangerous ties to light. One of the younger soldiers, seeking an audience with Lieutenant Bello for routine matters, inadvertently stumbled upon a conversation not meant for his ears. Hidden by the shadows of the late evening, he listened as Lieutenant Bello spoke in hushed, urgent tones. Yes, Mallam Yaya, I understand the situation. Bill's voice was a low rumble, the gravity of the conversation palpable even in those few words. Francis is under my command. Consider it handled. The implications of what he heard sent a chill down the young soldier's spine. The connection between Mallam Yaya and Lieutenant Bello was a dangerous thread, one that tied Francis directly to the wealthy and influential tutor Abibat had spurned. The realization that Francis was now in the crosshairs of a vendetta, caught between his duty as a soldier and his love for Abibat, was a heavy burden to bear. Without hesitation, the young soldier made his way to Francis, the urgency of the situation lending speed to his steps. Finding Francis alone, the gravity of his expression conveyed the seriousness of the news he brought. Francis, you need to be careful. Lieutenant Bello is involved with Mallam Yaya somehow. I overheard them talking about you. He relayed, his voice low and urgent. I don't know the full extent of it, but it sounded like they are planning something against you. The news hit Francis like a physical blow, pieces of the puzzle falling into place with a sickening clarity. The danger Abibat faced had now extended its shadow over him. The threads of their lives entangled in a way he hadn't anticipated. The realization that his position in the military, once a source of pride and security, had become a vulnerability, was a bitter pill to swallow. The weight of the situation settled heavily on Francis' shoulders. Lieutenant Bello's influence within the barracks was not to be underestimated, his connections reaching far and wide. To be marked by such a man was a walk, a perilous path. Every shadow a potential threat, every order a possible trap. Despite the fear that gnawed at his insides, a steely resolve took root within Francis. He knew that the path ahead would be filled with danger, but the thought of Abibat, alone and vulnerable in Lagos, stilled his will. He had to find a way to protect her, to secure the future against the forces that sought to tear them apart. The revelation of the dangerous ties between Mallam Yaya and Lieutenant Bello marked a turning point in the narrative, a moment when easing threats emerged into the light. For Francis, the challenge was no longer just about breaching the distance between him and Abibat, but about navigating a maze of personal vendettas and military obligations, where every step could be his last. The stakes had never been higher, the path forward never more uncertain. The anticipation of their reunion had become a beacon for both Francis and Abibat, a singular point of light in the darkness of their separate challenges. When they finally stood before each other, in a modest room borrowed for their meeting, the world outside faded to a distant murmur. In that moment, there were only two hearts beating as one, two souls intertwined by fate and choice. Francis, seeing Abibat in front of him, felt a surge of emotions he could scarcely contain. Abibat, he breathed out, his voice thick with emotion. The trials they had endured to reach this point made the moment all the more poignant. He pulled her into an embrace, a physical affirmation of their unwavering connection. Abibat, for her part, clung to Francis, finding in his arms a sanctuary she had longed for. Francis, I've been so scared, she admitted, a voice muffled against his chest. But being here with you, it feels like we can face anything. They sat, hands entwined, in the quiet room, sharing their stories, their fears, and their dreams. Francis listened with a heavy heart as Abibat recounted the pressures from her family, the unwanted proposal from Mallam Yaya, and the chilling revelation of her pregnancy. In turn, Francis shared the dangers he had now faced within the military, the threat from Lieutenant Bello, and the precariousness of his position. It was amidst this exchange, a mix of despair and determination, that Shadiat entered. Shadiat, Abibat's elder sister, had been a pillar of support since Abibat's arrival in Lagos. With her came a proposal born out of concern and strategic foresight. Francis, Abibat. Shadiat began, her tone serious, yet imbued with a warmth that spoke of her affection for them both. Lagos is no longer safe for you. The ties that bind Mallam and Lieutenant Bello extend further than we imagined. Staying here puts both of you in constant danger. Letting a word sink in before continuing. My husband works in Port Harcourt. He's aware of everything and agrees with me that it would be best for you to start anew there. Port Harcourt can offer you the safety and anonymity you need right now. It's a fresh start away from the shadows that haunt you here. Francis and Abibat exchange a glance, a silent conversation passing between them. The idea of fleeing, of uprooting their lives yet again, was daunting, but the promise of safety, of a chance to build a future on their terms, was too precious to dismiss. Shadiat, tell your husband. Tell him we are grateful, Francis said finally, the resolve in his voice mirroring the determination in his eyes. We'll do it. We'll do it. For our safety and for the future of our child. We moved to Port Harcourt. Abibat nodded, her hand squeezing Francis in a gesture of unity. Thank you, Shadiat, for everything. We know this won't be easy, but with each other we can face it, she added, her voice steady with newfound resolve. In the days that followed, preparations were made in secret, a quiet operation to evade the watchful eyes that might seek to prevent their departure. Shadiat's husband proved to be an invaluable ally, arranging for their accommodation and employment in Port Harcourt, laying the groundwork for their new life. The journey to Port Harcourt was a mix of apprehension and hope. As they left Lagos behind, Francis and Abibat dared to dream of what lay ahead, a home where love, not fear, defined their days, a place where their child could grow, unburdened by the shadows of the past. The reunion in Lagos, brief as it was, had fortified their resolve. Together, they had faced the storm, their love a beacon guiding them to safer shores.
Thank you for watching this video. Do make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure to turn on post notifications to know when I post new videos. Bye!